Hi, this is Sonim Bharti and welcome to a special edition of TFR Insights for Open Mainframe Summit. And today we have with us Joe Bastian, open source architect at IBM. Joe, first of all, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
I want to know a bit about this Ambitus project. And how do you say it? Ambitus, what is the right pronunciation?
Yes, it's a Latin word, ambitus for compass.
Perfect. Tell us about the project.
Yeah, so the project's really intended to give people a place to go who have questions about open source and the mainframe that don't fall neatly into any one category. There are several projects out there at the Open Mainframe project today that address specific frameworks or particular techniques for doing things. And Ambitus is meant more for people to find examples on how to do sort of the nuts and bolts kinds of tasks that you need to know when you're deploying open source in this environment.
So this is it more about technology or is it more about solving a people problem of open source?
Yeah, we try to put examples of use cases out there, regular use cases that people would often run into when they're trying to deploy open source software stacks, and also describe the technologies that are involved. So give you a roadmap, you as a user, a roadmap as to how to accomplish.
So how is it different from like typical, open source project at Open Mainframe like Zoe?
Yeah, so Zoe has a really nice, robust set of frameworks that bring a modern development environment to the platform that you can use from your own workstation of choice, your laptop, that type of environment, and it provides nice access through REST APIs or IDEs to reach the mainframe and do work there. With Ambitus, I think of us, what we provide is more of a toolkit. If somebody has a question as to how Kafka might run in the system or a specific project, how that might deploy in this particular environment, they can come here and find out specific information for those kinds of things.
Also, can you please talk about your own open source journey? That will help me talk about the next question properly.
Yeah, I've been involved in open source for a number of years in various applications. I really got my feet wet with open source in the AI arena, where we were trying to deploy a large body of open source packages on the mainframe to accomplish a series of tasks and make an offering that we could support and provide service for. And we ran into a number of difficulties along the way just because of the sheer volume of code that we were bringing to the platform and the depth of the technology stack that we were deploying with our customers. And honestly, we made some mistakes along the way that I learned a lot about. I learned a lot about the open source environment and what to do, what not to do, what our best practices ought to be. And so as my role there in AI grew to a certain point, the question came up, well, can we apply some of your knowledge and your experience to some of these other open source environments? And so you see, as DevOps grows on the system, as you see other kinds of deployment of open source workloads, I try to assist with people who are coming online, say in the last couple of years, and learning how things work.
Now, looking at your own vast experience with open source, what is your kind of thoughts about open source in the mainframe space, and also how you are helping through Ambitus project to make people even more comfortable with open source?
Yeah, one of the first questions we always get when you're someone new to the platform or somebody from the platform that's new to open source is, where can I find a trusted source? Give me a roadmap or some kind of headlights into the open source community so I know where to begin. And especially in the mainframe environment, where security is of such importance, and avoidance of vulnerabilities in code stacks is really at the top of everybody's mind at all times. We're really trying to help give people some advice and some direction as to where the best places are to go in the open source community to find the assets that they then can combine into workloads, pipelines, and frameworks that will give them the advantages of open source and minimize any exposure to a data breach or an outage of some.
Of course, open mainframe is there, and there are a lot of other open source projects that are part of the community. But if you look at open source in the mainframe, what does it look like?
Today, it looks like a work in progress. To be honest, there are a lot of open source has had a presence and a footprint on the mainframe for a very long time. If you go back to the days of Java, for instance, and obviously Linux as two of the most obvious open source presences on the mainframe hardware as a platform. You can trace your roots back to there. But since then, there's been sort of a real outgrowth in how the mainframe has been integrated into cross-platform pipelines, Jenkins and Travis type pipelines where work can originate on one node in the enterprise, and the mainframe can play a role in the overall end-to-end flow of work across all these compute nodes. And so there's a very robust environment that's out there, but it's very much piecemeal. And we are in the progress, of stitching all of this together into a coherent set of best practices, a good body of knowledge that says, in the mainframe environment, given all the priorities that we have here specifically on this platform, these are the best ways for you to deploy your open source workloads across the mainframe, and while making use of all of the resources that are on other platforms in the enterprise as well. So it's really one of integration and, as I said, a work in progress. We're constantly adding to that story.
One interesting aspect of the mainframe is that most of the community is, I don't want to use that word, but these people have been working on it for 60, maybe 70 years. And you're also right. In the beginning, it was all open source. There was proprietary software. It was not even the case. So it's less of a technology challenge, more of people challenge also there too, because you have been doing the same thing in the same way for so long. You don't want to change. So what is the biggest struggle that you see there within the community when a lot of companies are trying to kind of also bring mainframe? I mean, mainframe is part of modern world, but modern developer world, because so what are some of the main challenges that you face with the existing community, and you're trying to bring or blend them with the new developers?
Yeah, one of the primary challenges we have is cultural. People in very large organizations, especially distributed organizations, will tend to organize themselves into silos of expertise. And so someone who becomes good at deploying code, or perhaps developing code or distributing code in a certain context, will tend to do that again and again, and over time build up their own technical eminence in a specific area, which is always good. However, it's up to the particular individual to share that information and to cooperate with others, over time. And those are often muscles that are hard to exercise once you start to get good at something. And so, especially over decades, the mainframe's been around now for 60 years. It's easy for those things that you're good at to become habits that impede your cooperation with others. And you see that a lot of times in a lot of different enterprises where people have built their silos around their expertise, and they don't like to come out of them. So that probably is the number one challenge that we face. And we hope that through Ambitus and Zoe and Software Discovery Tool and all of the other projects under the Open Mainframe umbrella, we can start to get people to communicate better, to cooperate, and realize that they have common interests that they can support one another with, and really benefit by moving out of their comfort zone a little bit and realize that they're not alone, that there are others who will help them when they get outside of their silo.
Joe, thank you so much for talking to me today about not only your own open source journey, but also open source in Mainframe. And I look forward to talk to you again. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.